The Torah says that if a person is not able to bring a kevis, a sheep for the chatos, and the bird for the olah, he brings two birds. One is for the olah and one is for the chatos. So the question is, we always find the chatos comes before the olah. I think that was the question. Or maybe Mark asked the question. No.
I think the two psukim.
Wait a second.
The Yonah was first. Second, Yonah was second.
Gemara says in Zvachim that every sin offering is accompanied with a burnt offering. Why? Because the chatos is for atonement. But even after you're atoned, you're not back in the good graces of the king. So after you bring the chatos, the sin offering, you bring a gift. What's the gift? The gift is the olah. The olah fully reinstates the person to be in the good graces of the king. Therefore, we find the chatos always precedes the olah. Yet over here, take a look at Pasuk Ches. If the person doesn't have the financial capacity to buy a sheep, she brings two turtle doves, or shnei b'nei yonah, or two regular doves. One is an olah, one's a chatos. And the Kohen will atone for her, and then she'll be tahira. She'll be in a total state of purity. So here Rashi himself, in Ches, cites Chazal, then when it says, when the Torah tells us the olah first and then the chatos, that's only as you read it. But in terms of sacrifice, chatos kodem l'olah, chatos always precedes the olah. Kach shenin b'zvachim per kol hadodi. That's how the Gemara explains it in Zvachim. So what it mentions the olah before the chatos, it doesn't mean actually in the sequence of sacrifice, but only it means the way it's read. What does it mean the way it's read? So over here, there is a Sifsei Chachomim who explains Rashi. Lamed, take a look in Sifsei Chachomim. When you read the Torah, olah is read before chatos. Avla hakrova, v'od lo pirish there, le'el, d'chsev hevi keves ben shnoso le'olah, o ben yona o Torah lachatos. He says, but that it mentions earlier, you bring the keves, which is a year old for olah. Bishum le'el dinu shehigdim lefi shemedabe ba'asiris ba'ashiro should be a keves le'olah. Chenyona Torah lachatos v'afil hakrova olah kodemis. The kevis choshev yoser. He says, before we were speaking about the sheep and the bird, even though the kevis is an olah, because the kevis, it has greater value, the kevis precedes the chatos, although it's an olah. When I'm talking about two birds, then the chatos comes before the olah. So therefore, we have a question, if they're of equal financial value, the chatos come first. So therefore, the answer is l'kriya. When you read the Torah, it's read the order only olah then chatos. But in the sacrifice, you sacrifice the sin. But before we're speaking about an animal versus a bird, you bring the animal, which is an olah, before the bird, which is a chatos. That both there were equal financial value. Havaminu shigam lakrova ola kodemis hol vigdima. La pirush lo gdima kosov laser toelos gdima kosov elo nira. So over here, the Chachamim takes issue with it. He says it's a difficult pshat. Elo nira l'forsh kach gdima l'kriya shefamim kodma ha'ola l'kriyas Hashem. He says we're not talking about the reading of how it's read in the Torah. When you buy a bird, it's an ordinary bird, has to be consecrated. That means you have to verbally consecrate it. So you call the first one olah and the second one chatos. Now, when you buy two birds, which bird do you consecrate first as the chatos, which are sacrifice, chatos, olah? What happens if you buy a pair, one goes lost, now the only one that's left is the Ola. Maybe now you have to buy another 2 birds, because even consecration-wise, the Chatas always has to precede the Ola. On that he says no, that since it was only regarding Kriya, regarding consecration, because now I have one of the old birds left, because the Chatos went lost, I have to buy a new bird. So I need a new bird to pair up with the first bird. So the second bird that I'm going to consecrate now is what? Is a Chatos. It's not a problem, because that's only the Kriya, because the first bird only was consecrated first, but the actual sequence of service, you bring the Chatos before the Ola. That's what he explained. Shivri Shnaim, the Koral and Shemus, Echel Chatz Echel Ola, the Nevar Achatos, and then the sin offering of the first pair went lost. As Yavish Achim Bekom, V'yikro Shem Chatos, Nimsa Sheola Kodma Lekriya. So in that setting, in that context, the Ola was consecrated first regarding this group. To Elazuk Dima, Shlom Tomash Yitzorch Shnaim Acherim, you think maybe you have to buy a new pair? Kedei Sheyagdim Kriya Chatos Laola. This he brings the name of the Marshal. This out of Marshal explains the word Lekriya. Okay? But in terms of the order, so if I'm dealing with an animal and a bird, the keves, although it's an ola, it comes before the chatos. If I'm talking about 2 birds of equal financial value, the chatos comes before the ola. I mean, conceptually, it's difficult, because the Gemara says chatos is atonement, and the ola is a doron. Doron means it's a gift. Because first you have to be atoned, and then you're fully reinstated. So what about when you bring the animal? So the animal, you bring the gift first, and then you're gonna bring the atonement. It's a little difficult conceptually, based on what the Gemara says. Why chatos always precedes ola? It shouldn't make a difference whether the ola is an animal or the ola is a bird. Ola should always follow the chatos. I'm saying that's difficult. Perek Yud Gimel, Posuk Aleph. Vayidaber Hashem l'Moshe v'Aaron Leimor. Odom. Again, this is a ish. It says Odom. If you remember at the beginning of Vayikra, Odom ki Yakriv. Does the ish ki Yakriv. And over there, Rashi explains why to say Odom, because the animal, just as when Odom was created, the whole concept of ownership wasn't the question, because he was the only human being. The whole world belonged to him. Just as Adam, when he brought his korban, it was not stolen. Identically, when you bring your korban, it cannot be stolen. It has to be, you have to own the korban. But if it's stolen, it's not qualified. That's what it says Adam. The other pshat over there, we had said, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh cites the Mention Tanchuma. Why was Adam not able to bring a korban when he ate of the tree of knowledge? Because the concept of korban only has relevance if it's shogeg, if it's inadvertent. Adam had a level of clarity when he ate of the Eitz Hadas. It was deliberate. There was no ifs or buts. It was his choice. Therefore, he had no relevance to bring a korban. But we are tainted due to his action, therefore we're able to bring a korban. Although you could say you should have known better, and it borders on deliberate. No, because of what Adam had done, therefore we have relevance to bring Korbanos, and we have the capacity to be atoned. That's the Mention Tanchuma. So that's Adam by the Korban. Either the way Rashi cites one midrash, or the Mention Tanchuma. But over here, Adam Kiyah Bo Besoro, Seiso Sedabachas. Why Adam? Why not Ish? We'll see in a moment. Seiso Sapachas O Beheres. They're lesions which are various degrees of whiteness, intensity of white. And it turned out that on the flesh, the skin of his flesh, it was a leprous lesion. He's brought to Aaron, the Kohen, or one of his sons who are Kohanim. Let's see Rashi. Says Sapacha Shemus Legoimim. Various names of leprous lesions. Ulavanuzumizu. One has a great intensity of white than the other. Beheres Chabuboros means like dots. Chemboyer Bashchokim El Aron. Gzeres HaKosovu She'ein Tumas Negoyim Tyros and Elabi Kohen. That the person entering into a contaminated status or being removed from that status to enter into a pure status is all based on the pronouncement of the Kohen. If the Kohen doesn't pronounce the person Tomei, even if he has leprous lesion, he's not Tomei. He's not contaminated. And if he is pronounced to be Tomei, he can only be removed from that status, even when he recovers, when it heals, only if the Kohen then pronounces him Tor. So even if naturally it disappears, if the Kohen, there's no pronouncement Tor, the person remains in a contaminated state. Discuss it in a moment. Firstly, the opposite difficulty is if a person realizes that he has on his skin one of these leprous lesions, it should say, Uboy Laranakoi. He should come. Person has a problem, he comes to the doctor. The doctor will make that diagnosis. Is it or is it not? Or that evaluation. What's for Huvel Kohen? He's brought to the Kohen. Now, over here, there's an Orachaim Kodesh. We discussed regarding the laws of contamination of the dead. Reb Shimon Yochai says that a Jew contaminates in an oil, even if you don't come in direct contact with the remains of the Jew of his body. After he passes away, you contaminate. A goy, a non-Jew, it's only b'maga, only if you touch the body. But a Jew, it's even why, even b'oil. Why? Because the Torah says, Zosa Torah Odom ki amos b'oil. This is the Torah, an Odom who passes away, whose remains are in the oil. And the Gemara says, we'll see in a moment, Torah Chaim HaKodesh, Atem kriyim Odom, hem lo kriyim Odom. The Jew has the classification of Odom, the non-Jew does not have that classification. So it's only the Odom who dies in the tent. We speak about Tumas oil. One doesn't have to come in direct contact. So you take a look in the Torah Chaim HaKodesh here. Pirish al derech omram, Atem kriyim Odom, vein akum kriyim Odom. You see the Torah Chaim HaKodesh. You have the classification of Odom, quotes the Gemara above Mitzia, Gemara Yevomis, Sheina Akum etamid in the Goyim. Umikat Holchocho, Shein Goyim etamid bin the Goyim. So just as we said regarding Tumas Smes, the contamination of dead, a non-Jew doesn't generate that level of contamination that you contaminate in the oil. Identically, the laws of Negoyim, of leprous lesions, have no relevance to a non-Jew. It only has relevance to a Jew. As the Gemara says, he quotes the tractate Negoyim, that only Jew is subject to this. So a non-Jew has this type of lesion, he's not Tomei. It's only the Jew becomes contaminated. Therefore, it says Odom, who has the nega, we or classifications Odom, we have this contamination. The non-Jew doesn't have this contamination. Okay, that's what it says. Odom does say ish. He's addressing this issue. So, but by a korban, even the non-Jew can bring a korban in the Beis Hamikdash. I mean, he can't officiate, but if he wants to consecrate a korban, bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and it meets the criteria of what a Jew's korban is, it's unblemished, the Kohen sacrifices the korban on his behalf. So that we have difficult ways in Odom. So we go with the other interpretation. Odom, he has to own it like Odom, or Odom, why the laws of atonement have relevance to us, kapora, because we are the descendants of Odom, Jew and non-Jew alike. But over here, only the Odom, the ones classified Odom, does he have relevance to Tumas the Goyim, the leprous lesions, not a Goy. So now I mentioned it yesterday. It says Odom kiyer be'or besoro. It should say Odom kiyer besoro. Lesions on your flesh. What's or besoro? On the skin of your flesh. I was just thinking, you'll see the Or Chaim's answer. When we speak about circumcision, it says, Yimal b'sar orloso. You circumcise the flesh of his orlo. It doesn't say, seemingly the foreskin is what? It's a membrane covering that organ. It's also or. It's a thicker or. Right? So over there it says, Yimal b'sar orloso. And by the goyim it says or b'saro. So let's see the Or Chaim's answer here, and we'll be able to appreciate what I just asked regarding Milo. V'omer ki yeh b'or b'saro modia kosa shei tumas tzaras b'ish Yisraeli, here, that the contamination of tzaras regarding a Jew, elo b'or b'saro l'fnim. It's only skin deep. It's superficial. It's not the essence. The Jew of the essence of Jew does not become contaminated with the nega. Ki akum bechinas nafshom atzmahi bechinas atzaras amino. He says the classification of the non-Jew, his neshama, his nefesh, is what? It's classified, it's within the context of tzaras. With nefesh Yisrael, pigo vom letzar achet asher yechto. The Jew is only tainted because of the sin. The non-Jew, when he starts off, his essence has no relevance to purity. The Jew is pure. We become contaminated. So to indicate that, it's the orbisoro. It's only through something external. The non-Jew, it's not external. He starts off in that compromised state because of who he is. Yirsham Maran Tzoras Boraboso. Davke Boro, Vlo Bivsoro. Vein Tzorach Loma Bipnimuso. It's not his flesh, and of course, it's not his essence, which is his neshama. Rabbi Seinu Zal Omru Ki Tam Omru Odom Lo Afilu Tinok. Gam Klal Hoisha Shgam Hi Nikris Odom Dechsiv Vikra Shmam Odom. Okay, so now you can appreciate the question I asked. By Mila it says Yimo Besaror Loso, the flesh circumcision. You circumcise the flesh of his orlo, and that's the Jew. Regarding the Tzara, says or Besaror. I mentioned yesterday that if a non-Jew circumcises himself, like an Arab, he's called Arvi Mohol, circumcised Arab. The Gemara says that even though it's a Mishnah, if a non-Jew circumcises himself, it's purely external. It's cosmetic. But the orlo, which is the impurity of the Chet of Odom Rishon, it does not affect it whatsoever. That impurity, that blockage, that impediment, which causes him not to have relevance to spirituality, that is innate in the non-Jew. Avraham Avinu, only at the age of 99, achieved within himself a level of spiritual advancement that now, when he takes off the external cover, which is an expression of the Eitz Hadas, he affects his soul, his neshama, his heart. That we spoke about, the orla chitzoni, orla pnimi. There's the external orla and there's the internal orla. Only a Jew has relevance to that because we descend from Avraham Avinu. A non-Jew doesn't. So the essence of the non-Jew, when it became integrated with the Ra of the Eitz Hadas, it touched every part of him, and that cannot be expunged from him. The Jew, because of who Avraham Avinu was, if you do the procedure, it minimizes the effect of what that represents. We're still tainted. We still have relevance to death. We're still subject to the evil inclination, but we have less relevance to that because now it's due to it's more environmental. When you have the environment and you have this microscopic cell of the Eitz Hadas, together it activates the Yetzer Hara. That's the evil inclination. By the Goy, it's not external, it's internal, and as a result of that, it's Besor. When the mitzvah of Avram was given the mitzvah of Milo, Kimol Ish Besar or Loso. Now that procedure is causing transition that your essence is no longer have relevance to that at Erla, as initially was. The non-Jew, when he removes that, it's not Besoro. The Besoro, the essence remains the same. Therefore, it's only cosmetic. By the Jew, when he does it's Besara Loso. It's the Bosor, the flesh, which is integrated with that Orla, which is the expression of the Eitz Hadas. It makes the difference. It affects it and minimizes it. So it's the same idea here. The non-Jew, as he says, it's not Or Besoro. It's not superficial. It's Pinimuso. It's his essence, which is that. Therefore, he has no relevance to the laws of leprous lesions, because it's not something external. It's not something superficial. Therefore, by the Jew, it's Or Besoro, and by the Goy, it's Besoro.
Rabbi, when Abraham did the bris on Ishmael,
Paul says that Avram had a Yishmael, Yitzchak had an Esav, Yaakov, all his children were what? Were Shiftei Ko, were pure. There was no impurity in his progeny. So it says because the impurity of the Chet of Rishon was still within Avram, wasn't fully purged from him. How did it express itself? It expressed itself in Yishmael. How did it express itself in Yitzchak? It expressed itself in Esav. Yaakov was totally purged of that impurity, and therefore all his children were pure. The Gemara refers to that as psolis. Psolis is not essential. Yaakov had no psolis. Avram had psolis. Yitzchak had psolis. The psolis was Ishmael. The psolis was Esav. Okay, that's the understanding. There's no Chaim HaKadosh speaks about when Yaakov was born. It's in Hazinu. That over there he shows that when Yaakov was born, initially he refers to a tree that has intermingled in the fruit is impurity. Yaakov was a pure sapling, and because he was a pure sapling, therefore the fruits that grew from him, the branches, all bore pure fruit, which were the Shiftei Ko, which were the tribes of God.
I understand why Ishmael was not, but when you had
The most special family that ever existed was Yaakov and his children. So he asks in Parshas Vayigash, why did Hashem give Torah to Yaakov and his children? Why did he wait till Sinai that the Torah should be given? So he explains that for the Torah to be given, you needed a critical mass of people. You needed 600,000 males above the age of 20. And that didn't exist with Yaakov and his children, special as they were. You needed that dimension of representation. So the Maral explains why 600,000. 1,000 is the largest number. 600, 6 is 4 directions and up and down. That represents totality. When we reach the critical mass of totality, that setting is the setting which Hashem gives the Torah. That's the only thing that Yaakov did not have. In terms of who he was, who his children were, it was the right, purity-wise, they had it. But the setting wasn't yet. And therefore, it had to wait till we had the 600,000 males at Sinai. Only in that context was the Torah given.
but it could have been 60,000. Didn't have to be 600,000.
No, it has 600,000.
Why? Why
Because that's the
100?
maximum. You can't have 1,000, 100,000. That's the representation of the maximum in all numbers. 60,000 is tens, right? It's not hundreds. Here you have a representation, 1,000, 100, and 6. It's a separate discussion, but that's Rabbi Bachir.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Yeah, that the Gemara says in Megillah that because Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian emperor, destroyed the first base of Mikdash, the Navi says there will not be shen nin v'nechet. There will not be a trace of Babylon because of what he did. And the Gemara says, what is shen nin v'nechet? Vashti was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. She was the last descendant. When she was killed, she was the grandchild. That was the fulfillment. There will not be a descendant. Then it says the Babylonian language will no longer exist. So Tosas asks a question in Megillah. Even in his time, they spoke Babylonian. So if they speak Babylonian, so you see the language still exists. So Tosas answers that when it says the language no longer exists, Babylonian, there was a dialect that was spoken by the royalty, by the royal family, that dialect will be forgotten. So what they speak, Babylonian, that's their vernacular. But the dialect that was spoken by royalty, that will no longer exist. That's Tosas' answer. The Maral of Prague says something interesting. He says, we have 70 root nations. At the time of the Tower of Babel, Migdal Bovel, when God dispersed the 70 families, and that was the beginning of the 70 root nations, it says he confused their language. Each root nation assumed another language. What is language? It says before that, they all spoke Hebrew. All the 70 families spoke Hebrew. Because they came to rebel against Hashem, he established them as 70 nations, and each one has a distinct language. That's the beginning of languages. He says, what is language? Language is an expression of the personality, of the persona of that nation. Every nation has its unique persona. Language is an expression of that culture, of that persona. That's what he explains. So he says, if a Persian would speak Babylonian fluently, is he a Babylonian? He's expressing the Persian culture or perspective with speak in Babylonian. Meaning when it says the language come to an end, the language no longer represent the culture. That personality, that persona will no longer be represented through language. That's what it means the language will come to an end. So today we have Persian speaking Babylonian, but it's no longer Babylonians. So what I explained, it says that Rashi says, Chazal, how did he bring this project to an end, Hashem? One asked for an axe, one asked for a pail, and this was the beginning of then, they started to kill one another. So what I said was, initially they all spoke Hebrew. If language is an expression and a representation of perspective, they all had the same perspective. Therefore, they had a meeting of the minds. We could have a consensus. But once each nation has its own way of seeing things, you can't come to an agreement. That's the beginning of the end. So by confusing that language with the language of the expression, it's another perspective. When you have 70 perspectives, it's not going to happen. This was the beginning of the end, and it came to an end. So as a result of that, I said, we merit redemption because it says, Loshinu Lashonam, Malbusham Ushmam. We did not change our language. The Jews, even in Egypt, weren't the culture that we stopped speaking Hebrew. We did not change our attire, and we did not change our names. We kept our Jewish names. So what I said was, based on this morale, that as long as the Jews still spoke Hebrew, that was an indication of the expressions of our essence. That the Jews' soul, Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh. That's God's language. As the Ramban says, because God created the world with Lashon HaKodesh. If we still spoke Hebrew, what is Hebrew? It's an expression of spirituality. That means there's still a spark of holiness within us. But if we would have stayed longer, if that spark would have been extinguished, it would have been over. But that's the reason why that was like an indicator. Because we still had that spark, therefore we retained our names. We had a sense of who we were. We did not change our attire because we had a sense of who we were. Even though belief-wise we became idolaters, that didn't make a difference. But there was a sense of who we were, that we are something which we're not who they are. We're not what the world is. Although in belief, we may be idolaters like they're idolaters, but in the essence of who we are, we have a sense we're more elevated than they are.
That's pretty incredible.